Howdy, howdy. We're gonna get started this reaction, and you already know who it is. Legendary drops. Um, if you want, go show some love. We're gonna get to this reaction now.
One is good. Greed, bad games, gross incompetence, talent leaving, stock manipulation, Hollywood corruption. WB Games, no. WB Discovery has been speedrunning their collapse for the past 5 years, and I'm surprised nobody has taken notice of it.
The only thing I know from WB is they do the Batman games, Suicide Squad. They also do the Shadows of Mordor, which was already bad because of the whole loot box debacle. I don't know if they had a hand in the Star Wars game. I don't think they did. But I know, they also had the flack for patenting the Nemesis system in their game. And that started this whole trend, probably where Nintendo got their idea to start patenting stuff.
You guys thought that Ubisoft was bad. You haven't seen anything yet. Absolute cinema. And I mean that unironically. We've seen for years as publishers and developers in the video game industry have been chasing Hollywood's tail. They just want to be like Hollywood. This is what it looks like.
That's so true. Like the Game Awards, the last year's one wasn't as bad. But like 2024 and 2023, that one wasn't as bad. But like 2022 to like 2018, like between there, like you could tell that the Game Awards were trying to go Hollywood as much as possible. It was great. It was crazy to watch. And it's like, why? I don't really watch Game Awards as much. If I do, then it has to be for a game I'm wanting to win. Like Baldur's Gate, I wanted to win, so I watched the whole thing. 2024, I didn't really have a game. I just wanted to see if they even would attempt to put Black Myth Wukong in Game of the Year contender, and they did. But then they did the whole change in how the voting works, and I was like, yeah, no, that's probably gonna be it for me. Gamers don't really get much of a voice. We're just pay pigs at this point.
Like when you're infested by it, when its rot has metastasized, when its control is strangling, because, well, mistakes at the top ultimately mean cuts at the bottom, and that's exactly what's going on at WB Games. These idiots thought that after the success, the wild success of Hogwarts Legacy, $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Potter is popular, so can't blame them for riding that high. Harry Potter is very popular.
Dollars in revenue should have been a live service game. Well, yes, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League and Multiverses were financial failures for them, up to $400 million burned on the pyre of misguided games. They're not a problem. They're not what caused this situation. This is a company that is struggling to make games, struggling to make movies, and also struggling to find their way out of $40 billion in debt. This is not a closure.
They're $40 billion in debt. My God.
This is a cave-in. But before that, today's sponsor. Crystal of Atlan is a brand new MMORPG that delivers fast, fluid combat. Warner Brother Games isn't just shutting down, it's actively self-destructing. Monolith Productions, dead. Player First Games, gone. WB Games, San...
Yeah, I knew Monolith. I didn't know they canceled a one
Diego
game.
buried. Now, if you've been paying attention at all, this should games gone.
Harry Potter. Their deal. Mortal Kombat hasn't been the same. Like, I think the last good Mortal Kombat was when they did Mortal Kombat versus DC. Like they had both of them. I think that was a good one. But like, I don't know. I haven't been really a fan of Mortal Kombat since like the early days. Like there was, I don't know which Mortal Kombat, but there was one where it's like an RPG aspect, like a storytelling version. I think that was really good. I think you played as Liu Kang, like early day Liu Kang.
WB Games San Diego buried. Now, if you've been paying attention at all, this should come as no surprise because WB Games has been on a downward spiral for years. Not because they don't have the talent, not because they don't have the valuable franchises, but because they have no clue what to do with them. And it's not just their gaming division. This is a WB Discovery problem. A company so deep in debt, so mismanaged, so financially.
So far, I think all the Batman games have been good, though. Like, I don't think they'll ruin it, but they probably will. I mean, most games now, if they've been old enough, they get infected with what's happening now with most studios, and then the game just doesn't do that well because everybody wants to play politics, and it just gets annoying because most people play video games to escape the real world.
Unstable that they're throwing everything at the wall, praying that something sticks. They're thinking about delivering value to their customers, and I don't actually think they're even thinking about how to generate revenue at all, because whether it's TV, movies, or video games, the entire company is hemorrhaging money. A lot of people want to assume that this has something to do with Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League or multiverses, but if we look at WB Discovery overall, $34.6 billion in net debt, a $494 million net loss in Q4 alone, a 29% drop in game revenue year over year, a 9% drop in theatrical revenue because movies are flopping, a 16% drop in TV ad revenue because nobody's watching any of their networks. The only thing keeping them alive isn't gaming, isn't movies, isn't streaming, it's licensing deals. They're making more money off of other people using their IPs than they can themselves. And that's the real problem here, because WB Discovery isn't in business of making great games or entertainment. They're in business just trying to survive until the next quarterly earnings call. And survival means squeezing every last drop out of whatever they own, no matter how much it kills their long-term success, because, well, this leadership isn't interested in long-term success. WB Games isn't dying because of bad luck, not because of one or two bad games, but because of their own absolute unrelenting stupidity and the sheer desperation of a company that has no options left. What's crazy is things didn't used to be like this. Everybody knows who Warner Brothers is. The Harry Potter movies, The Hangover, Twister, Mad Max, Terminator,
Yeah, Warner Brothers is like very old. Like almost every old movie or TV show you could think of, Warner Brothers probably had their hand in it. Even old like childhood cartoons, I think Looney Tunes is Warner Brothers.
Matrix, Troy, the Batman movies, 300. Warner Brothers has made some of the most timeless movies imaginable, and they have a few still left in the tank. I know I've really enjoyed the Dune movies, and I know a lot of people really enjoyed the Barbie movie. That made a lot of money. They've also had some of the biggest gaming franchises in the industry, not just profitable, but respected. The Batman Arkham series were just great superhero games. They redefined the genre and set a gold standard that even the Spider-Man games are still being compared to today. Middle-earth's Shadow of Mordor was a breakout success, introducing the Nemesis system, one of the most innovative and famous mechanics in modern gaming, where your actions were actually remembered by your enemies. And as the...
I think the first one was better than Shadow of War, because for Shadow of War, I kept getting a lot of repeats, even after killing them. Like, not like repeat characters, repeat skins. And then, of course, then they had the whole debacle with loot boxes and a weird, oddly pay-to-win mechanic, which was stupid for mainly a single-player game. It was so weird.
The orcs would rise and fall within their hierarchy. It would lead to emergent gameplay where your enemies would actually grow stronger and remember you and want to take revenge on you. They've made the Lego games massively popular.
Lego games
Simple,
are really good.
Fun, co-op-friendly games, actually consumer-friendly titles that have sold millions. Mortal Kombat, one of their only real true gaming-first IPs that they purchased from Midway back in 2009, a franchise that's been around for over 30 years. Now that I think about it, I'm struggling to figure out why they haven't captured on any of those properties that they got from the Midway deal. Rampage, NBA Jam, Cruisin' USA, NFL Blitz. For a while, WB Games was on fire. They had brand recognition from their movies, talented studios, strong IPs, and most importantly, they were letting their teams actually make great games. But then, well, WB does what this industry always does. They got greedy. I think the turning point, at least for WB Games, was back in 2017, because this is when they released Shadow of War, and instead of building on what made the predecessor such a major success, they ended up poisoning the game with some of the worst microtransactions this industry has ever seen. Loot boxes, pay-to-win mechanics, a grindy end game that literally pushed players towards spending real money.
Luckily, when I bought this, they removed all this crap. But like I was like, I have like almost 100 hours in that game. But what I did was like I knew I was getting near the end of the game, and it was already getting to the point where it was getting hard, and I was like, I'm gonna wait because I bet you this is not gonna stay. Because it was like I think $5 to get like perk upgrades, and I was playing on the hardest difficulty, so it was already hard enough.
Just to be able to get.
But because I think the hardest difficulty, of course, you take more damage and whatever, but also you can't tell when to block or parry, and there's no HUD, like there's no enemy markers.
Through the final phases of a premium title. It was so bad that even after the game had sold millions of copies, WB still somehow lost money on it. They actually managed to make a best-selling game unprofitable, literally snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Back then, we were already starting to see the signs of change. Their entire perspective had shifted away from the people that were actually buying their products and onto the investors that were demanding more short-term gains.
Money,
and
money,
all of this
money.
gets even more worse when you're a game publisher that's owned by an inept entertainment company that's leadership is desperately trying to sell out. I'm shocked that nobody else has caught on to this, but it perfectly explains why WB is so greedy, why they are in so much debt, and also why they had to close their studios. While I'm seeing a lot of people in media squarely put the blame on WB Games itself, almost all of these issues stem from the parent company as AT&T spun off Warner Media to merge it with Discovery.
Huh. Odd.
Many people are blind to the fact that we're essentially seeing the aftershocks of failed corporate fraud in slow motion. The entire Warner Brothers Discovery merger wasn't about creating a stronger media giant. It was about bloating the company's value so executives could cash out at the highest price possible. This is the exact same playbook that Embracer Group ran when they were on their insane buying spree.
I know none of these companies. Yeah, I know none of these
Acquiring
companies.
a ton of IPs and studios, not because they had any long-term vision for them, but because they wanted
With 25 AAA games in development, Embracer to add 37 more studios.
to make themselves look like an irresistible acquisition target. Sadly, this didn't play out for them, and Savvy Games Group backed out of
a $2 billion deal with
the
Embracer.
$2 billion deal that they were working on.
Oh my God.
WB was doing the exact same thing. They weren't building for the future. They were stuffing the books, cutting costs, inflating value, and positioning themselves for a massive payday. The plan they had was to sell out to Paramount. They thought that they could flip the company for a high value, rake in billions, and then leave someone else to deal with the fallout. But Paramount wasn't stupid. Paramount CEO Bob Bakish passed on the deal. They looked at the numbers, the leadership, the assets, and they passed because they knew
That was probably very good for Paramount to give up on Warner Brothers.
if they just waited a couple more years, they could buy WB Discovery for even cheaper. It's always the people that think they're the smartest that end up being the dumbest. While these schemes have definitely worked in the past, it's in every CEO's playbook nowadays. And given how much inflated value the company had during lockdowns, like every other company, we see now that they've lost 50% of their value from 2021.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that when COVID hit, everyone had to do activities that required you to be inside. So, of course, like gaming and movies and whatever was going to skyrocket. But the fact that people are still banking on it to stay that way is crazy to me. It's like not everybody is an indoor person. Like there's a lot of people in the world that want to go outside still. Whether it be to talk, drink, whatever. Like, I think that opened the eyes for a lot of like people who are indoor people. Like they only love staying inside, not really go out to socialize or whatever. COVID didn't really affect them that much. Like me, it didn't affect me that much. I'm not one to go outside and like go socialize with people.
To today. Now they're stuck holding the bag. And the worst part is, well, they didn't even have a plan B. It seems like their corporate leadership's entire strategy was built around flipping the company for a profit, but when that failed, WB is now left with $40 billion in debt and a bloated, failing media empire with no real direction. That's why they've been floundering ever since. Even with a few successful movies, even with Hogwarts Legacy breaking records, even with Mortal Kombat 1 selling well. Because at the end of the day, this modern WB or WB Discovery wasn't ever supposed to be a long-term success. It was a pump and dump scheme that just didn't pan out. And when you take the time to think about it, they're really one of the only publishers that's out there outside of the console makers where their financial success isn't necessarily tied to the games that they make. Because if WB Discovery is failing, then WB Games is failing by extension. So they're screwed no matter what they do. It doesn't matter if they're making profitable games. If they're still not making enough money, they could get cut either way. It just depends on how much they make versus how much they cost. And when you're attached to an already struggling media company with a CEO that doesn't have any value in games, understand games, or the industry whatsoever.
That happens with a lot of like game studios. Older, I wouldn't say older, but like people that have no idea what gaming is about or whatever. And they just see it as a money scheme or a way to profit off of stuff. Is so stupid because if you don't understand like what makes video game great or how to make a good video game, you're not going to be making money. You're going to be losing money.
However, everything is just an asset to be flipped. And on top of that, you're being exposed to Hollywood mentalities. You're in for a very rough ride. From my perspective, this is the least sustainable video game publisher in the entire industry by a country mile. A lot of people are going to point at Ubisoft. They're $4 billion in debt. These guys are almost $40 billion in debt in total for the...
Our counter argument would be Warner Brothers is way bigger than... Because like you said, they got movies, games, etc. I think they're way bigger than Ubisoft would ever be. Ubisoft won't even touch a quarter probably what they make.
The entire company. They're not cooked. They're burnt, and they have been for a long time. You know, outside of Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League and Multiverses, while those definitely contributed to the situation that they're in, this might be the first time that I am not going to blame the studios for their closure. I'm not even going to blame their games for their closure. Well, I mean, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, but that studio didn't actually get closed down as a result of it. But from my perspective, this all goes on their parent company and its leadership, because that's where this goes in this case. Monolith, they didn't even want to make Wonder Woman. They had no interest in making that game whatsoever, and the players don't want it either. That one's obviously a Hollywood decision more than anything else.
I wouldn't mind it, but I would be extremely worried that they would try to make it political or whatever. I wouldn't mind it, because Wonder Woman's a pretty good superhero. Like, these superhero video games is hard because like my favorite hands down is still the Punisher video game from the Xbox. I don't know why, because back then they said it was way too violent, and that's why that you could probably never find a new one or make a new one. But I'm like, there's video games now that are way more violent than Punisher was. So I think Punisher needs to come back. I don't know who owns Punisher, but that game needs to come back. It needs to be a new one.
Else, and that's the problem, because I don't think that things are going to get better for them. They can't get better for them. Not only are they shackled to the financial corpse of WB Discovery, but at the exact same time, they're being drugged down by it. They're underwater with crippling debt. You're dealing with executives that don't understand games. You have Hollywood Paris.
I wonder when they go bankrupt, because $40 billion is crazy to be in debt. Like, I don't know how. Because you get to get it more in debt when you want to make something then. And you have to bank on it. You make it even or even going way above. So that way you can start paying off the debt. I felt bankruptcy is about their only answer left.
Sites that are trying to bully and brute force their way into the industry. And on top of that, they're trend chasing so hard just to squeeze out any dollar they can that you're never going to...
You want to squeeze, make another hero shooter or a battle royale with Warner Brother characters and license? Like combine them all, or make it like a Super Smash Bros. Arena type thing. There you go.
To be able to find success. They don't understand games. They don't understand the players. They don't have any respect for their audiences. They don't have any respect for the industry. How are you going to succeed?
That's true.
Now, while WB Discovery's leadership have definitely done their damage, WB Games isn't without blame. At this point, WB Games is probably the best example of what happens to a publisher when they chase the live service dragon off of a cliff. They aren't just doubling down on some of the worst monetization practices in the industry. They are teaching a masterclass on how to ruin your credibility and destroy any goodwill that you have with your fan base. Mortal Kombat used to be about skill, competition, and unlocking content through gameplay, but not anymore. With
Yeah, it's
Mortal
pay
Kombat
to-
1, WB cranked
Pay.
monetization to disgusting levels, locking even the most basic customization behind real.
I was babysitting one day, and my uncle let me play his PlayStation 5, and he had Mortal Kombat. And I just looked at the characters, and each character was almost like $20 to buy. These are characters that have been in the game before for free, and they were charging extra money. It's so stupid.
Real money purchases. Fatalities, the literal defining feature of the franchise, lock behind premium purchases. They have cosmetics that can cost more than the actual game. Season passes, battle passes, and event cosmetics, forcing players to grind endlessly or pay up before that content disappears forever. Overpriced premium currency scams, where the bundles are priced in a way that forces you to buy more than you actually need, leaving you with leftover credits, hoping that you're going to spend even more money. At this point, Mortal Kombat isn't a game, it's just a monetization platform with some fighting mechanics attached to it. And if you think that's bad, WB straight up ran one of the biggest live service scams in recent memory with Multiverses. When Multiverses launched into open beta in July 2022, it quickly gained massive popularity, pulling over 20 million players and generating millions in revenue through founders packs,
Yeah, this was like the Smash thing.
battle
So they already
passes,
did this
premium
before.
currency, and cash shops full of cosmetics. It didn't feel like a beta. It sure as the heck wasn't sold like a beta. WB was marketing this like it was a full release, running seasonal events and treating it like it was a long-term investment. And then they shut it down. In March of 2023, WB suddenly announced the beta would end in June of 2023, taking the entire game offline for over a year. Apparently, the studio that was making the game ran out of content, and instead of just leaving the game online and taking longer breaks in between updates,
Iron Giant.
they just took it down entirely. No refunds. No
Like, that's what I mean. Like, every childhood classic you could think of, Warner Brothers probably had a hand in it. Like that. That's how massive they are. And to see that they're in debt is crazy to me. I knew the WB Games was in debt, but I didn't think the whole WB franchise was in debt.
guarantee that their purchases would carry over when the game re-released. No indication that the shutdown was coming before people had already spent money. Players had assumed that the game was like an early access launch and they could play the game, support it while it was in development, and that's seemingly how it was marketed. But that's definitely not how it ended. For an entire year, WB sat on players' purchases while pretending like this was all part of the plan. Then, in May of 2024, Multiverses reached its full release, and 8 months later, WB said it was going to get its final season. Now, Multiverses is shutting down for good on May 30th, 2025. That means that everybody who
That's
supported
crazy.
the game, anybody who bought battle passes, the
That means it's barely been online for 2 years.
founders packs, character unlocks, skins, or premium currency twice now, have nothing to show for it. WB took money from players not once, but twice, and then killed the game anyway. This is what live service games are at their worst. A game that was never designed to last, only to extract as much money from people as possible before vanishing into thin air. Then we have Rocksteady, the studio that gave us Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham
Yep,
Knight, one of the
Rocksteady.
most respected, beloved, and talented single-player developers in the industry. Forced to make a live service dumpster fire that completely destroyed their reputation. WB took a single-player studio known for immersive, narrative-driven games and made them build a looter-shooter with brain-dead RPG mechanics,
Ugh.
some of the most ugliest character designs that I've seen in any game, battle passes, and always online. While there were some rumors that this game was originally pitched by Rocksteady, it wasn't. It was a rebooted corpse of a game that was brought over from WB Studios. Suicide
No.
Squad was doomed from the start. It didn't reflect anything of Rocksteady's talent in the slightest. The core design was fundamentally flawed because it wasn't built for fun. It was built to be monetized. Every gameplay loop was designed around engagement metrics, not player enjoyment. I mean, they put in characters that historically do not use firearms into a looter shooter simply for the purpose of it being a live service loop. The game was delayed multiple times, but no matter how many times you try to fix it, you
Yeah, I don't know if the shark uses guns. I don't even know who that is, but I know he does. I think this is Deathstroke. Or Will Smith. Yeah. And of course Harley does. She uses dual wield pistols in some of the animations.
can't fix something that is broken at its foundation. WB Games forced one of the best single-player studios in the entire industry to make a generic, trend-chasing, microtransaction-riddled mess, and it bombed. Over $2 million burned, and Rocksteady's credibility completely shattered.
Oof.
Nothing to show for it. Now, you would think that they would have learned their lesson. To kill the Justice League flop, Multiverses is shutting down. Tons of live service games across the industry are failing, but WB saw Hogwarts Legacy, their most successful game of all time, a single-player game.
See, I would buy this, but I'm not a Harry Potter nerd. Like I know nothing about Harry Potter. All I know is that there's a talking head that tells you what class you belong to. That's all I know.
It became one of the best-selling games in years, made over $1 billion, and outsold Call of Duty for the first time in nearly 20 years. And their response was, this game should have been a live service. WB CEO of Global Streaming and Games, JB Perret, was asked about the failure of Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League and the success of Hogwarts Legacy. He claimed that the AAA space was too volatile and suggested the best solution was to focus on live service games, saying, rather than launching a one-and-done console game, how do we develop a game around, for example, a Hogwarts Legacy or Harry Potter?
Why would they want a live service game when they barely last 3 years? They can't even make it last longer than 5.
That is a live service that people can live and work and build and play in a world in an ongoing basis. Live service games are far more volatile than single-player games and AAA games, and it's not even close. At least that's what I've observed. That's what I've seen gone down over the last couple of years. Take the time to think about it. If you actually do your research and you're making sure to deliver something that players are looking for, if you're making sure not to beat them over the head with any social political messaging or anything like that, if you're selling the game at a fair price and you're budgeting that game the right way, there's a good chance that you're going to make your money back. But with a live service game, you're going to spend the same amount of time, same amount of money making a game that you need to put out for free to be able to get players in the first place. And you don't even know if it's going to be successful. There's so many factors that could work against you that are outside of your control that could go wrong. What if the economy gets flipped upside down? People don't have the time to spend on a live service game. They can't keep up with the grind. They can't spend on the microtransactions.
Mm-hmm.
What if another game comes out around the same time that you didn't know anything about?
The worst mistake I ever made when it came to these types of games was Ark Survival Evolved. I wasted 2 years of my life. My high school, high school going into college, I wasted 2 years of my life. I wish I didn't, but looking back now, I mean, I was playing with friends, luckily, so it makes it less regrettable, but still, it's just... That's when you wish you had that pocket watch in your pocket that reverses time, and you could tell yourself not to do this. Because that was such waste of a time.
About, and all of a sudden they take all of your audience, and now you're left with nothing. That's happened to a lot of games. What if trends change? Because Lord knows you guys are never ahead of the curve in the first place, and all of a sudden people aren't interested in whatever kind of game that you're putting out. Why is winning the lottery becoming the default option for some of these companies to find sustainability? What are you doing? You just lost $300 million on live service games. You had Avalanche take 4 years to make a game that made you $1 billion. You have a bunch of executives that are sitting in a room looking at a bear trap and going, you know what? I'm going to stick my dick in that. That sounds like a good idea. What are you doing, man? They are the Suicide Squad. They're here to drive your company straight off a cliff. Every choice that their leadership has made has never had the customer in mind. It's never even had the brand's identity or the brand's integrity in mind. They're just haphazardly following the leader when it comes to the rest of the industry, because none of these career CEOs have an original bone in their body. They're always just following somebody else, copying somebody else's homework because they themselves do not know what to do. It's as simple as that. Oh, microtransactions? Well, we're going to put those in. Oh, live service is making money. Well, we're going to try that too. Oh, there's a new trend. Well, we're going to follow that. How? There's no iteration. There's no innovation. How do you expect to find success? How do you expect to get better? You can't. What am I talking about? This is Hollywood. That's exactly what they do. WB Games isn't just failing because of bad business decisions. It's failing because it no longer operates like a video game company. It's been completely hijacked by Hollywood at this point.
Yeah.
Infected with the same risk-adverse...
I mean, I could say Hollywood's, they've been in flames for so long, whether it be political reasons or just content reasons. Hollywood has not recovered after COVID. In my opinion, COVID probably made Hollywood worse.
Trend-chasing, creatively bankrupt mindset that's been running the film industry into the ground for the past decade. These people do not understand games, they don't respect games, and most importantly, they don't even know how to let their studios succeed. Instead of nurturing their studios, giving them the space they need to be able to create original ideas, or even just let them build strong standalone franchises, WB has shackled them to fleeting relevance of their movie and comic book IPs. There's a reason why some of the greatest studios in the industry are the ones that forge their own path, from Software, Nintendo, Capcom, even companies like Larian and Grinding Gear Games. They don't need to wait for a movie success to be able to dictate their next project. They create their own success. They make their success. But WB, they are slaves to their film division. WB's entire creative output is dictated by whatever comic book adaptation, movie reboot, or soulless franchise extension is currently being pushed by Hollywood. If a movie flops, the game is going to flop. If the franchise loses relevance, the studio is out of work. You can't build a successful gaming division like this. Look at what happened with Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. There was no reason for this game to exist other than the fact that WB had a Suicide Squad movie in development and thought that this could ride on brand recognition. But Suicide Squad wasn't exactly a beloved household name. It wasn't Spider-Man, it wasn't Batman, it wasn't the Avengers. WB has spent years desperately trying to turn the DC universe into something as big as the Marvel's MCU, but their movies have never had the same impact. They've never built the same goodwill. They've never had the same level of interest. What's funny is that while even Marvel-related superhero games have also struggled the past few years outside of Spider-Man and the recent hit in Marvel Rivals. So when Rocksteady, a studio known for meticulously crafted single-player Batman games, was suddenly forced to make a live-service looter shooter about Suicide Squad, it was already doomed. The movie itself wasn't even a major hit, so what makes them think a cringe-filled, trend-chasing live-service looter shooter was going to appeal to anyone? This was a Hollywood...
They could do what Marvel's doing with Marvel Rivals and have every Warner Brother characters that they own make them a hero shooter like Overwatch. It would be cringe, but I mean, I'm trying to think of ways they could make a lot of money. But the thing is, they can't close before Marvel does. They can't shut down servers because Warner Brothers has a lot of characters that they can use, and you can make it more cartoony. Like, you don't have to do exactly what Marvel's doing. You can do it more cartoony, more kid-friendly. Not to say Marvel Rivals isn't kid-friendly, but you can make it, like, cartoony because some of the characters are, like, childhood cartoon characters. That could be one way they can make money. Relying on Mortal Kombat probably isn't going to make them any more money because Mortal Kombat didn't do well. Batman's, they do all right. I wouldn't say they do enough to put them in the green. They probably barely break even with the Batman games.
Decision, not a gaming decision. Nobody at Rocksteady pitched this idea. Nobody at WB Games, if left to their own devices, would have made this their next project. This was purely a case of a game being made to sync up with a movie release, and like clockwork, it backfired spectacularly. And Suicide Squad isn't the only casualty. Look at what happened with the canceled Flash game. WB had a Flash movie in the works. They greenlit the Flash game. The movie flopped. They canceled the game. That's how this company operates. They aren't making games to stand on their own. They're
games
making products that are there
together
to be able to support whatever's on their film slate. If a game studio's entire fate is tied to whether or not the latest DC movie or WB movie performs well, then how the hell are any of these studios supposed to survive? They didn't even realize they were looking the gift horse in the mouth, because this is exactly why Rocksteady's Arkham series was so successful, because it wasn't tied to the movies. It wasn't piggybacking off of Christopher Nolan's Batman films. It was its own thing. It was a game-first vision of Batman, built from the ground up with mechanics, storytelling, and world design to fit that medium. But WB doesn't seem to understand that anymore. Instead of letting their studios define whatever their own creative vision is, they are assigning them whatever IP needs a game at the moment. That's how Monolith, a studio that revolutionized open world design with the Nemesis system with Shadow of Mordor, ended up making a Wonder Woman game. Now, I'm not saying that Wonder Woman is a bad character for a video game, but under WB, this was never going to work. A Hollywood-driven Wonder Woman game made by an American studio for an audience that overwhelmingly consists of young men. Published by WB Games. This had disaster written all over it. Nobody wanted...
See, people would play a woman main character, even if they're males, because only for two reasons. One, if they're straight, female looks good. It's just how it works. Men like beauty. Two, if it has anything to do with gender politics or gender stereotypes that don't affect men, so like women empowerment or trying to think, like stuff that would affect a different gender, then they won't connect as well. But like games like Lara Croft, Tomb Raiders, God, I can't think of names offhand. I'm cooked. A Wonder Woman game would do well. I think it would. But knowing them, they'll probably just follow the movies, and that's probably why it will fail. If it follows the comic series, I think it'll do better. Like going to her, cause she's not from Earth. Going to her area, I think Athena is where she's from, if I remember correctly. And her growing up and becoming Wonder Woman, I think would be a good story. You got a couple others, but a lot of times it's just the writing is bad for some of these lead women characters because they try to play too much into like politics, and it just ruins it.
Wanted this game, nobody asked for this game, and in all likelihood, Monolith didn't even want to make it. WB had a DC-shaped hole in their release schedule, and they just shoved Monolith into it. If this game ever would have saw the light of day, it 100% would have turned into yet another strong female protagonist lecture disguised as a video game, because that's how Hollywood sees Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
for me, the only way that a Wonder Woman game would have worked is if it was made by a studio that understood how to handle action, spectacle, and combat systems that really make the character feel powerful. Someone like, oh, I don't know, Platinum Games, maybe under the direction of Yoko Taro, where the gameplay actually sells the fantasy of being an unstoppable warrior, but WB would have never gone in that direction because, well, they don't want a game that delivers on fantasy. They would rather have a game that would reinforce a message. And this is the nail in the coffin for me because I don't think that WB Games really has much of a future. It has no identity beyond their IP. It's not a creative powerhouse. It's not a innovative publisher. It's just a marketing arm for WB Discovery and whatever they're trying to push. Their developers have no freedom and they're shackled to the debt of their parent company. That's why there's no room for mistakes. That's why they're hemorrhaging money, closing studios, and turning IPs into cheap cash grabs. Because at the end of
they're probably, if they keep getting further in the billions in debt, they're probably just going to start selling IPs. My guess will probably be Batman. Batman, they'll probably keep or really sell high because that probably makes the most money. Mortal Kombat, definitely. But the only people I think will buy it is a Japanese studio would buy Mortal Kombat. Maybe not. Japanese or like a European country. I don't think China or Russia would buy it. So, yeah, Batman would probably be the only like good seller to get a little bit.
End of the day, WB Discovery doesn't make games; they're making excuses. So we know that Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League had journal entries from Lex Luthor that were talking about how Wonder Woman had to suffer through toxic masculinity. The horror. I know. We also know
that's why
that
I don't think
Monolith
they could do a woman
had
Wonder
retooled
Woman
the
game.
Nemesis system to be about friendship in the next game for Wonder Woman. When they forced that studio to make the Wonder Woman game and ditch the game that they were making before, they forced out all of the top talent that they had that had built that studio to what it was. Those guys went over. They're now working on a Black Panther game for a new studio that they created. How do you think ideas like that Wonder Woman game, how do you think that ideas like the Suicide Squad game come into these studios? What ends up happening, and I guarantee a lot of you guys have been through this before. Have you ever been at a company that had a big leadership shakeup where people left and then executive management came in and they were the one calling the shots? They were the one trying to influence the direction of everything. Where before, your boss would give you the freedom to be able to do your job the best way that you could get it done, the highest quality way that you could get it done. They let you get away with quite a lot of things. Corporate comes in, you can't even breathe without them noticing. Then what they do is by the time they actually get out of there and they stop messing around with everything, completely derailing the way that things are made, well, the next person they put in place is somebody that shares their values, shares their ideas, and shares their perspective, shares their vision.
No comment. No comment.
That's what happened to these studios. They had incredible leadership. They had incredible talent at these studios. However, the Hollywood minds and the Hollywood corporates push these guys out and replace them with fucking skinwalkers that are making games based on whatever they want up at the top. And that's the reflection of what you're getting in these games now. So not only are they inundated with all of this horrible monetization, microtransaction, live service, all of that nonsense, but you're also getting their perspective, their vision of what they want the world to look like and how they want to preach to players and all that stuff all runs downhill and into these games. This is the story of a publisher where everything is going wrong all at once, all over the place. They weren't built for sustainability, or at least they're not building for sustainability anymore. They're not making games for the players anymore. They're not giving their creatives any space to actually be creative or anything like that. And on top of that, they have forced out all of their talent and replaced them with clones more than anything else. The only studio that they have that is still its original nuts and bolts right now is Avalanche. And to be honest with you, it's not going to be very long before they won't have them either. Why would they? If they've already done it to these other studios, it's going to happen to this one too eventually. Success only lasts so long. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I did. I enjoy researching these kind of things. If you guys did enjoy,
Yeah, I do like him taking the time to research and actually put like articles in his videos. Makes it easier to fact check and stuff. But yeah, overall, very good video. If you want, give him some love. Let me copy this. No, I'm thinking about it. So I can put it in the bio and title. But yeah, like I said, I think with that happens with a lot of these studios, they get into that identity politics stuff, or just regular politics, where they try to make you seem like a bad person, and it's like people don't want to deal with this anymore. Like I think people are waking up finally. But the whole entertainment industry needs a huge shakeup because it is bad. Creative writing is at an all-time low. But yeah, what's gonna happen with my channel is I'm doing Wilds. I might do a Wilds live stream tomorrow if my Wi-Fi will be fine, and I'm doing the Devil May Cry series starting Friday or Saturday. So stay in tune. All right, see y'all later. Peace, bye bye.